Hi, welcome back to Philosophy with Jana ESP. Today I will be doing a short critique on Michael Tsarion's concept of anarchy. Now, I will be showing you a clip from over a year ago, so his opinions might have changed, but regardless, this still gives us a good opportunity to examine some of the elements of natural law. While I will be doing an incredibly detailed critique on Stefan Molyneux, Jordan Peterson, and Ken Wilber in the future, I will also do some short critiques like this one. It is not about tearing down people, it is about critically examining information to discover truth. Like my last video for natural law teachers, this will be more for the intermediate student of the occult. My partner Noah recently wrote this, which is appropriate to begin here. The purpose of critique is to illuminate dark corners of others for our understanding, to cast light in the cave, to attempt to correct error. As anarchists, we have no leaders. Only when we become individually sovereign do we realize that we are the only leaders we need. Many people have intelligent-sounding opinions to wow the crowd and lure them into some type of business contract, but the initiate knows that this is not any real goal in terms of enlightenment, other than to generate a market and satisfy the false self. Obtaining truth is going beyond the realm of opinion and conjecture and into absolute knowledge, which is why it necessarily becomes less profitable, less popular, and less socially acceptable. The process of initiation requires effort, study, contemplation, reading books, and deconstructing your own psychology to eliminate falsehoods, lies, and delusions. It is a destructive process. Obtaining this knowledge doesn't make one unique or special, because ego validation eventually holds no value, and what is sought is to become more grounded, more aligned to truth in our daily lives, more whole, more integrated, and more moral and evolutionary, with more value to offer. And this is the basis for a free and moral world, as within, so without. This natural law principles chart is the most occulted information out there, and very few have understanding of it. It is the key to unlock understanding of the Hermetic principles described in the Kybalion, and it is helpful to tease apart the threads in our understanding of anarchy and the definitions of its related terms. The philosophical information in this chart says much more than any ancient system of imagery, magic, or ritual, and archetypal and mythical systems based in relativism. While the ancient Greeks had a glimpse of this with Plato's theory of forms and the absolute good, they did not go all the way, and thus the history of Western philosophy has been the increasing descent into relativism, from empiricism to postmodern madness. Mark Passio goes into this chart in What on Earth is Happening, number 36. It would be good for you to go through that material and return to this video.
But again, there are only two states of rulership. There is monarchy and anarchy. And as I've said, I'm a proponent of both of them. I believe in monarchy and anarchy. Now that's really odd of a statement to make, but you'll understand what I mean in a moment.
The highest forms of mental abstraction are merely divine principles, perfect and absolute. So we can already see the law of mentalism in these positive absolutes and divine ideas. The words of God, logos, of the all. And quick point is that these positives are principles, as the negative expression is only the illusion of negation in the paradox of the relative and absolute. We see polarity of positive, negative, good and evil. We see logical sequence created by time from generation to manifestation. The law of causality applies here. The causal factors of mind and spirit that manifest as action create the world. We can consider the law of rhythm and vibration as part of the evolutionary process from negative to positive. And we can apply the law of gender in that it takes holistic consciousness to perceive and understand this. Logic and pattern recognition. Correspondence is here between internal and external, and this will be our focus. Let's pause for now and listen to what Michael Tsarion has to say about anarchy.
And as you talk about anarchy, I'm deeply, deeply into anarchy. But not of the political brand. That's a farce, that's a myth. And the only people who want it are some of the scuzzbag, ne'er-do-well, will-less, docile bodies we're talking about. That's for them. They are the ones that Blake talked about when he said the fist that crushes the tyrant's head becomes a tyrant in its stead. Okay, Occupy? Right? I'm interested in attitudinal anarchy, where you're free in your mind. There ain't too many of them around, man, so don't sell me the other shit. Don't sell me the exoteric version. I'm not interested. You can scream, you can chew bricks, you can chew the carpet. All these advocates out there go, anarchy, 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 shoot a cop. Have some fun. Burn the world. Nobody's going to fuck with me and my AK-47. What the hell are you talking about? Right? It's attitudinal. And that is an act of the Zen master. And even they haven't got it now. Most of those guys don't know what they're talking about. It's just more pre-slip. The real thing is something so much vaster than that. Right? It's going light. It's like the Fool, two different kinds of light. And everybody on this planet is separated by which light they're signing on for. The light of luminescence or the other kind of light, the feather light. Whoa, all the difference in the world right there. We explored that. So anarchy.
So Tsarion is saying that he is not into political anarchy, but anarchy within a person and the freedom of his mind. There are a lot of problems with this that can be cleared up with the natural law principles chart. First of all, he is saying that there is only internal anarchy and freedom, not external anarchy and freedom, because he doesn't understand the law of correspondence. This can be the individual and collective, or more accurately, the aggregate. Tsarion is conflating the esoteric and exoteric onto these dimensions of reality. Yet this entire chart can be considered esoteric knowledge, which encompasses both the internal and external. Correspondence is seen in the two major studies of the occult, the major arcana regarding the macrocosm, cosmic natural laws, the external world and physical sciences, and the minor arcana regarding the microcosm, the psyche and self-knowledge. Understanding the occult requires understanding both. To clarify the terms, the internal is the self, his actions, and that which is within the self, one's thoughts and feelings or emotions, and the external is the realm in which one lives with others. It is about others and the environment, and in our case, the coercive man-made structures in our environment. There is positive and negative expressions of anarchy, and this is something that most anarchists don't understand. Just as there is a positive and negative expression for monarchy. For that reason, anarchy and monarchy are not a first principle.
So anarchy, yes, I'm all for it, but it's the anarchy of a Cervantes, right? It's the anarchy of an Ezra Pound. It's the anarchy of a Wilhelm Reich, who's so vocationally attuned, or a Tesla, or a Walter Russell, right? Who's so in tune with themselves that they don't need anything from you.
So Tsarion is right in that the primary focus should be getting the self in order, but this is not anarchy. It's actually sovereignty. Etymologically, the word sovereign is derived from the Latin term super, above, and regnum, rulership and control. The sovereign means one who is above the rulership and control of another. Sovereign means not a subject or slave. Sovereignty is the expression of internal monarchy, self-rulership, and self-dominion. This is when one's thoughts, emotions, and actions are aligned to truth and unified. It can be considered a state of non-duality. It is about centrality and centralization within the self, where you have reign over all of the different aspects of yourself. Sovereignty can be considered the internal expression of freedom, meaning that you are freed from the mind control of authority, the social hierarchy, and relativism, whereas anarchy is the external expression of freedom. Now, because sovereignty means self-rulership under natural law, of course, it is actually opposed to internal anarchy, the negative expression of anarchy. Internal anarchy means that there is no self-rulership, that we are in a state of confusion and are inwardly divided and fragmented due to the lack of self-knowledge, care, and will to know, heal, and transform. It is a state of individual disorder. In regards to the triune self, internal anarchy and confusion means that there is incongruity and contradictions between thoughts, feelings, and actions. This is when the individual has created neurosis and pathology from dissociating from himself, running from himself, and erecting protective walls to keep him stuck. Individuals seek to run from the truth instead of going through the alchemical process of self-transformation. Here there is no centralized locus of self-control, self-awareness, or inner unity that is required to have self-ownership, moral accountability, and self-responsibility. Thus, sovereign is the expression of internal monarchy, when we are king and queen to ourselves, rather than slaves to the control of others. This can also mean that we are no longer slaves to the unhealed, unconscious, and unintegrated aspects of ourselves. Following the direction of initiation to manifestation, sovereignty leads to the positive expression of anarchy, which is freedom in the external. Tsarion says that he's against political anarchy, but political can mean social, and in this case, the external. Tsarion leaves out the entire social dimension when describing anarchy, when that is the dimension that the term actually applies in a positive sense. Let's turn to the definition of anarchy. Now, to wrap up our discussion on the internal self, when anarchy is defined as chaos, we can indeed correlate it to the chaos of inner confusion and the lawlessness of the divided house of the self and self-ignorance. So, continuing now to the positive definition, the etymological definition of anarchy is no masters, no slaves. Archons means masters, and anarchy is a shortened term for anarchons, or anti-archons, the absence of archons. Anarchy doesn't mean no rules, but no rulers. Collectively, we either live under natural law, which does bring an element of chaos and unpredictability, or we live under the chains of man's law, existing in the false order of predictable cycles of engineered social chaos. Positive and true anarchy is the expression of external freedom. It is the freedom from coercion and duress of a ruling body or political rulership, which is always immoral and based in control. It is based in the falsehood that one person has the right to enslave another. This right does not exist. When Tsarion says that he's against political anarchy, essentially what he is saying is that he is against external freedom. Because anarchy in our environment merely means no centralized authority, no systematic violation of rights, as all man-made laws always deviate from natural laws, as to oppress the population and ultimately bring societal destruction. There is no enlightened person that doesn't seek external freedom and instead prefers the chains of slavery. We are enslaved to corporations, banks, the monetary system, the political structure of all relativistic man-made systems of Darwinian dominance, of suicidal elitism. We have the eugenics human genocide operation going on through technology, 5G, smart grid, wars, vaccines, poisoned food, and chemtrails. We have the suppression for the cures of cancers and other diseases and the suppression of free energy and other technologies that are more in alignment with nature. I think that while Tsarion does understand the evils of our modern dystopia, as he has indeed done good work in uncovering the architects of control, he believes that an attempt to change the system will merely feed the beast. And there is, of course, truth to this. Playing into the dialectical political game or believing that the monetary system can be used for good to change the world all feed into the system, as the most pure of heart and mind will be co-opted. You can't beat the system with the system for sure. And you have to understand all parts of the system in order to transcend it. Nonetheless, we cannot say that we do not have any responsibility to change our dystopia, and that it should just be about ourselves. That would be to ignore the situation and live in selfishness. Tsarion's problem, like most, is that he doesn't understand the causal factors that have led us to our current condition, the proper diagnosis, which is false belief systems like moral relativism and the relativistic enslaving structures of man that this belief system has indeed created. Therefore, he doesn't realize the solution, which is gaining moral knowledge and then taking right action in alignment to natural law. Knowledge is the key, and Tsarion tends to revel in irrational mystery, like a lot of New Agers sometimes. External freedom means that you have the freedom to take actions that are in your right to take, actions that do not violate another person's freedoms or rights, or harms them physically or holds them under duress or under the threat of harm. Yes, harm can mean many other things. We are just talking about baseline morality here that is required to live in collective freedom. It is only in the state of freedom that the human species can evolve. Relativistic systems retard, regress, and stunt growth. Freedom is the external expression of sovereignty. The more individuals with internal monarchy, the more external freedom we have. The more internal anarchy and confusion, the more external monarchy and control there will be. This is sometimes known as the law of freedom. The opposite to external freedom, the negative expression, is external monarchy, the centralization of power, as all evil has its rhythm and movement towards a singularity. Power unites with power, and today we exist in a very dark one-world order. This dark world order, well, actually I should say order in quotes because it's really chaos. It's the pretense of order. But, just for semantics, this dark world order has been created by the aggregate consciousness in the vibration of fear, the state of ignorance and confusion, internal anarchy. To have the absence of external rulers is what actually makes you sovereign, when you do not depend on coercive authority outside yourself, but you seek the truth directly.
Attuned, or a Tesla or a Walter Russell, right? Who's so in tune with themselves that they don't need anything from you. They don't need you to hand them a promise of anything, happiness or any other thing. They're not looking to you because they're totally deeply entrenched, in dialogue with their imperial self, which provides all that is needed. Right? So they're not looking to you for anything. They're not prostituting you and they're not prostituting themselves.
Tsarion is claiming that enlightened people don't need anything from you, but you do in fact need other people to not violate your rights, and you need other people to not violate other people's rights. Because how can you even have freedom to become enlightened in a state of external monarchy and slavery? Care for self is care for other, and when we allow evil to exist, even if it is not directly affecting us, it will eventually affect us, as we live in a holographic universe of correspondence. This requires understanding what a right is, so we do need others to learn this information. Spreading the message of natural law and teaching others is not prostitution and the expression of control. It is the very method for individual transformation and collective freedom. We need people to understand the difference between right and wrong. They need to gain that knowledge. Some rare individuals discover this knowledge without any external source. I know of one, yet the majority requires some external source to learn from. It is up to us to make that information available so that it can be found and assimilated and acted upon. It is a New Age myth that we shouldn't seek to change others. However, enlightenment is not just about yourself. When you become awake, your moral obligation is to help awaken others, which is no easy task, and why it is called the great work.
They're completely beyond that stage. They're in touch with the great ultimate. which is, as you said, the flow of freedom. Freedom is just a synonym for the great ultimate, the great Tao, that holds you to no contracts, doesn't present itself either as teacher to you or as student, and doesn't want you to be in any of those distinctions. It's just a commune in which two friends are walking on a path towards the truth. And the truth is with them. There isn't even a path to the truth. You're walking in it in this moment.
Tsarion says that enlightened people are in touch with the great ultimate, the flow of freedom, but freedom can only be the expression of moral knowledge. It must be known and practiced as the taking of actions in alignment with truth, objective morality, natural law, and this must be shared with others. When you understand that the problems of the world are based in ignorance, and so the solution is knowledge, then it is a fact that some people will have more knowledge than other people, and it is a responsibility to share this knowledge. Freedom exists through right action. It is actually a knowledge differential that is behind the power differential of the master-slave paradigm and is the driving force behind the control system, law of mind. And what we think does matter. And if we do not think in alignment to truth, then we will enslave ourselves and each other. Because the uninitiate has no basis to differentiate truth from falsehood, he perceives every person as on the same level, and even when he declares that certain inner work must be done, he doesn't know what that actually entails because there's no external metaphysical framework to interpret it. It becomes purely subjective. And at this point I want to mention how Tsarion's philosophy is mostly existentialism. We will be investigating that ideology in depth in the future. So when Tsarion claims that there is no path to truth, he does not understand that truth must be discovered through knowledge. It is not an ambiguous feeling or mystical vision or a default state of being. There are requirements for living in truth, such as understanding cosmic laws, and not just being immersed in subjectivity.
But that requires a certain kind of sensitivity. Don't get me wrong. There's, you can't say that it just comes to you. There's no work. There's work involved because the world is malignant and toxic, and you've been brought up by toxic parents, and you've been brought up by toxic schools and teachers and priests and all the rest of the programming. So there is a moment where, to find the still point. In snake dance, the doctor, right, has to fight the snake, the dance of the snake. Yeah, you think you're going to be exonerated from that and get the enlightenment and truth? The dancing with a snake is to know the snake, to know it through and through, what it's all about, how it came into existence, and what weapons it uses to, hypnotize the shit out of you. So, and that takes anarchy of the mind, walking without rhythm. Very, very different process. Like we said, Crowley's magical will. Can I hold the exact opposite of every idea that I espouse and cleave to? It doesn't mean I throw out the ideas I cleave to, or that I chose, or that I favor. No, I have those. I'll keep them forever. But do I know the absolute refutation of it in the same bowl, in the same mind? No, the answer is no. Our education systems are not interested in that. They're interested in you in polarizing you into allegiances to tenderize you for the political game that comes later. They don't want you to be your own advocate, your own devil's advocate. But until you are, there is no chance of enlightenment. It's a myth. It's just a word that's been bandied around, courtesy of the left brain. The word is not the thing, right? So the thing, the real thing, I talk about the real thing, what it is, and the road to that. And that road always leads back to the self and back to purging, back to shadow work and all the things we make central to this, message.
So here he talks about becoming aware of the evils in the world and doing shadow work, which is indeed very critical to do on the spiritual path. But he states that the resolution is anarchy of the mind, walking without rhythm. You can see how problematic this understanding is with what we have gone through in this episode, as internal anarchy is the lack of self-rulership, since anarchy means no rulers. When he talks about anarchy of the self, he can mean freedom from mind control and the authority of others, but it is important to differentiate between real teachers and authoritarian indoctrination. While you should reject authority, you should not reject the truth. Truth is the authority, and you can find truth from others. We do need to purify, transform, sync up our thoughts, feelings, and actions in alignment to natural law to live in non-dual consciousness as a unified being. Only as a unified being can we take full responsibility for ourselves. This integration cannot be done in a state of confusion and internal anarchy. Tsarion perceives enlightenment as being your own devil's advocate. Now, there's truth to that, as in the beginning of our journey, we must internalize the dialectical method to challenge and discard false beliefs to come to truth. But once you come to truth, truth about certain things and the structure of reality itself, and you have certainty about it, there is no need to hold on to falsehoods or the opposition of truth. Mental baggage must be disposed of.
And it doesn't have much to do with other people. If other people sign on and walk with you, and that's all great. That's an extra cherry on the top. That's fantastic. But you never make that your motive, and you never make that, as Ayn Rand said, I'm not interested in what they're doing because I'm giving them complete freedom. Yeah, I can say no masters above, which all anarchists know how to say. Yeah, but what about the slaves below, asshole? Want me to come into your life and show you where they are? The real mystic has no masters above by all means, but no slaves below either, you see? Now, that kind of anarchy is, you have to read the fine print. They don't mean that. They mean plenty of slaves below. Just no masters above. I've seen through that bullshit. Look at this communism. That's what communism is defined as, you see? And yet they have the worst masters above, but, the selling, the rhetoric, the pull you into the store, is to sell you this idea of no masters above. And of course, a lot of people want that, and they're right. That's born out of a virtue. But you don't understand, that it's a lure. It's the carrot this time. And so sometimes when life has been very, very rough, and punitive and harsh for several years, these people bring out this gleaming, big cake, like some Wizard of Oz, just festival, a parade, float down the street. Happiness, happiness. Oh, you remember the prisoner last scene? All you need is love.
So here he says that he's not interested in what others are doing as to give them the freedom to do what they desire. But we can only have collective freedom and goodness if people act morally. So it does matter. If you are not actively fighting against political slavery with the sword of truth, then you know very little of true spirituality. Tsarion interprets anarchy in the external as meaning that there are slaves below you. But that is not external anarchy, but external monarchy. Slaves do not exist without masters. That's why it is the master-slave dialectic. Anarchy is a very enlightened and philosophical concept. It is not about punks trashing things in rebellion against the state, for you have to understand and live according to objective morality to understand and live in anarchy and external freedom. Anarchy is actually anti-political, to clear up that semantic confusion regarding political anarchy. And true anarchy is pro-moral, as it cannot exist without morality. They are indeed mutually dependent. And morality not only requires the non-aggression principle of do no harm, but the self-defense principle of defending yourself from harm. And this includes defending yourself from the state and its monopoly on violence, the military and police. Tsarion can only see political anarchy in the negative sense as being communism. But communism wasn't anarchy, even though it claimed to be moving in that direction. It was simply another system of control that appeared to be a reversal of the power structure. Utopianism is also delusional in that it only perceives external freedom and not the work of internal sovereignty that must be done first. Communism and utopianism got conflated with true anarchy, as they were all popularized together in the 19th century anarchist movement. There are many versions of false anarchy, like anarcho-communism, anarcho-socialism, anarcho-capitalism, and anarcho-syndicalism, that attempted to find freedom in still a coercive power structure. There is only one true anarchy, the freedom from the entire structure itself, with love, truth, sovereignty, freedom, and goodness.